Suriname is a high forest and low deforestation country at the Atlantic Ocean to the north of Brazil in South America. With 94% forest coverage, this is the greenest country on earth. The forest is home to indigenous and tribal peoples who have contributed to its sustainable maintenance for centuries. As the forests provide them with food, water, medicine, and shelter, these same forests also provide the world with some of the most important services: oxygen production and carbon storage. The Suriname government is now undertaking a RED preparedness project to implement RED Plus projects in the future. In this preparation process, the role of the indigenous and tribal peoples is crucial.
During the readiness process, it is important to set in place those structures that would govern the program. And in that governance, it is important that we engage each other correctly, that we respect each other's views of thinking, but also that we respect the way we communicate within those different groups. And so one of the roles is to help the National Red Plus program to know and gain knowledge on how to engage traditional people.
Included in the RED readiness proposal is the capacity building of indigenous peoples and the institutions that represent indigenous peoples. So just to go back a little, they were involved in, there were consultations with indigenous and tribal peoples in formulating the project. Now that the project has been formulated, the project itself caters for building the capacity of indigenous and tribal peoples, including building the capacity of their agencies, their institutions, the groups that represent them. That is ingrained in the project itself. And also through that project, we provide support for indigenous and tribal peoples to be able to participate in decision making of the projects, and we also ensure that through the RED project that the indigenous and tribal peoples are consulted before any major decision is taken in relation to how the resources of the forest will be managed through the RED Plus project.
Our role would be more at community level, have a lot of information discussion at community level, how they see their contribution to this whole issue of climate change, adaptation, mitigation, keeping the forests healthy, and so on.
No, the role of us is simple, because we are part of the world. We are part of the people who will affected. We are the vulnerable group of climate change in general, and if they are preparing a project proposal to come with the RED Plus, then we will be involved to make sure that our interest is guaranteed.
Being part of the coalition of rainforest nations, Suriname had an important contribution in the development of the RED Plus mechanism that is under continued negotiation in the UNFCCC process. But especially in Suriname at the national level, the question remains: what benefits and risks will indigenous and tribal peoples have?
They are at the forefront of designing their vision for their own development based on their knowledge and the resources available. Secondly, other resources might be mobilized as well for their development where their resources are limited.
The whole idea is to strengthen the involvement of forest peoples in RED Plus decision making. Right, and the indigenous and tribal peoples, of course, are the ones who who occupy the forest. They are the ones who live off the resources of the forest. They are the ones whose communities are in the forest, and therefore, as forest peoples, any project related to RED Plus and its implementation will ensure that the people of the forest are consulted, and to ensure that their views and their opinions, what it is that they want, will be integrated in the planning process.
We see some benefits, but I would say they are potential benefits because we are not certain whether it will be indeed realized, because we often hear that there are benefits for indigenous and tribal peoples, but we also have a lot of reservations and doubts, because we say that if, for example, or not for example, the main issue is land rights and recognition of rights of indigenous and tribal peoples in general, because otherwise we are almost fooled with benefits that, you know, like what they say, you hang something in the air to bite, and then if we bite, there's nothing. But the point is, the land rights should be recognized, we think, first. But we do see benefits, for example, capacity strengthening, that our villages can indeed become more aware of climate change in general, about the role of forests, about forest conservation, about sustainable forest management.
We cannot talk about benefits yet because there's no RED Plus implemented in Suriname. But we, like the development is going, then this mechanism, there will be payment for not cutting down your tree. Let me say it like this, easy way. So the way we live within the forest, it will affect us. And we do hope that through this mechanism, we can get our land rights recognized.
Indigenous and tribal peoples are not just stakeholders, but rights holders. We have rights over our ancestral forests. We have a right to participate in a meaningful manner. We have a right to take decisions, give free, prior, and informed consent or not. And if those issues are not recognized, then we will still be marginalized, also in RED Plus.
Well, risk is because your way of life will be influenced by this mechanism. Because they are like drivers for deforestation, they look like the way we are farming. If the RED project says you have to stop cutting down trees, you have to stop making new farms, that will affect your way of life.
How we manage that dynamic environment of the tribal peoples not necessarily all thinking about an issue in the same way, and how do we manage the past disappointments that those very people have had with other projects where their rights perhaps were not necessarily taken into consideration or not adequately addressed, and therefore they may be a bit skeptical. So we see that as two particular risks that we face.
In spite of the skepticism of indigenous and tribal peoples about the RED Plus implementation in Suriname, they continue to participate in the national preparation process. As all other parties, they too are willing to overcome the challenges for the sake of conservation of the rainforests for humanity. Moreover, their very own survival and future is at stake. But they have new hope. While the government still does not recognize the rights of forest peoples, RED Plus could bring answers for such challenges. But that can only happen if done in a correct, rights-based and transparent manner while empowering rights holders and stakeholders.